Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Self-Published Success, a show that highlights forward-thinking authors who chose self-publishing over traditional and found success in doing so. My name is John Feldman. I'm the founder and CEO of Visionary Literary and your host for today's show. Today's guest is Carolyn Wilman. Carolyn wears two crowns. She is a digital marketer who works with companies to create viral promotions and programs, and she's also a sweepstakes teacher. She is the author of two award-winning books, You Can't Win If You Don't Enter, and How to Win Cash, Cars, Trips, and More. To date, others have won more than $1 million using her proven online entry system. Carolyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We are excited to have you. So first, as we were talking before we hit record, your bio is much, much longer than what I condensed down. So give the listeners a little bit more insight into you, who you are as a person, and what made you want to become an author.
Well, I had three things converge in my life at one time, but I will start with what happened in college, and don't ever listen to that little negative voice. I remember one time in English, I got a C, and I looked at the paper and I thought, that's okay. I'll never be a writer. It doesn't matter. Fast forward, like 30 years, I'm on my 7th book. So don't let, what happens to you earlier stop you from just going down the path of what is coming up in front of you. And then how I came to write my first book is I had won a lot of sweepstakes. I was entering sweepstakes as a hobby. I'm super biased. I think it's the best hobby in the world. And I had got caught in the dot-com bubble. And so I was unemployed, and I had gotten pregnant. So I wasn't working. I kept entering. And when it was time for me to go back to work, I was, deciding what I was going to do. And I had so many people asking me what my secret was to winning. Then someone suggested I write a book. And I thought, and then someone said to me, why would you give away all your secrets? Because, I was really good at winning.
Yeah.
And it's a good question, right? Why would I
Yes,
give away
it
all my
is.
secrets? I was going to have coffee with a girlfriend, and I drove past a church, and on the service announcement board, it said, you can't lose helping others win. And I thought, I knew right then I was going to write the book. And what's funny is people say, God, give me a sign. And I had a literal sign, and I didn't take a picture of it because it was before we all had, it's been a while. It's been a minute. And so I don't have a picture of it, but I'll never forget seeing that and the moment of insight I had. And so I started writing the book. I'll give a tip. Anybody writing nonfiction, start with the easiest chapters first. So then you feel like you have something, and then keep going. So the hardest chapter I wrote last. Now there's an expression, first thing in the morning, always eat the frogs, means do the hardest thing in the day first, and then the rest of the day is easier. But I found for book writing, to feel accomplished and to give it some structure for nonfiction. Fiction's a whole nother kettle of fish, as they say. But I wrote the easiest things first, because then I felt like I was making progress. And then it was easier to get to the harder chapters for me anyway. Everyone has their own system. So that's how I started with the first book. And then I just kept going. I just felt like I had another book in me, and I had another book in me, and I just kept going.
It is. That's excellent story, excellent insight, especially with the nonfiction start. Even if it's the middle of the book, just start so that you can get some traction, some progress, and kind of positive momentum. So you wrote this first book. You started with what you knew, and it kind of branched out from there. You shared your secrets because you had a literal sign, which is amazing to see. But when it came to that, where were in the writing process, before we move into any kind of publishing, in the writing process, what were the downfalls, the roadblocks, the tough times? Like, how long did it take you to write that book, and how did you get through those tough times?
Okay, this is kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
So I have loved reading metaphysical, motivational, inspirational books since I was 18. My dad said, if I can teach you at 18 when I learned at 36, you'll be way ahead.
He's right.
So one of the books I'd read was The 1 Minute Millionaire by Mark Victor Hansen. And it says, write a book in 30 days and make $1 million.
That easy, right?
That easy.
Yeah.
It took me 20 months to write the book, and I still haven't made $1 million. So it's kind of funny. The thing was, though, I didn't stop, right? Like, it took me 20 months. And then the hardest thing was, it's gotten easier. So I have to say that people that are starting now, I feel, have it easier than when I started, because technology has gotten better and programs have gotten better for publishing.
Right.
When I started, it was 3 iterations before KDP, and I can't even remember the name of the company that it was. And we had to buy a package that included book layout, and it had like some marketing, and it had 250 copies of the book and a whole bunch of things. And when they did the book layout, I got the author's proof, and it was horrid. They took this nonfiction book and put it into a fiction format. And I literally cried the whole day. And then I put on my big girl pants and sat down, and I learned how to lay out a book, and it took me 2 weeks. I had no idea what I was doing. I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I heard someone say one time, everything's figure outable.
It's true.
It's true.
Yeah.
So I figured it out. And again, this was, the first book came out in 2006. So it was 2005. So it's almost 20 years ago. So there wasn't like the YouTube video. Like now, I'm sure if I put in, how to lay out a book in YouTube, there's somebody's put a video in there, or there's a blog post, or there's something, but there was nothing back then. I had to figure it out by myself, and it was so frustrating. But now what I do, here's another tip, is I have a layout that works for printing. And so when I want to write my next book, I take the last book and I just change all the chapters and the titles and stuff, because the layout works. And I don't move anything.
Yep.
So every book is the same size.
Yep.
And has the exact same layout, because I'm not what is it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yep. Yeah. So that's same thing here. It's funny that you said that, because I would have different Word documents for hardcover 6x9, for paperback 5x8, and I would just go like you said, and I would just replace all the text in there. Now, as you're saying before, the YouTube videos on how to do it, or software. So software like Calibre or Vellum, you just take your Word document. It doesn't even matter how it's if it's in manuscript format, you just plug it right in, and within seconds it spits back a PDF version of the interior of your book. It's absolutely insane. But yeah, I remember that my first ebook, attempting to sit down at the table, a friend and me were sitting at a table, 2 of us, 3 laptops, and about 12 to 14 hours overnight trying to get this ebook right. And every time we submitted it, it would come back with errors. Not now. Now it takes, literally matter of seconds when you plug it into software. So for the aspiring authors listening, know that there were hardships 20 years ago, 15 years ago, even 10. But now the rate at which software is being launched and released to help authors is pretty quick. So
now here's another tip, which it took me a while to figure this out. My books are all 6x9. They started off in the smaller size, but then they got too thick to be mailed. So I don't actually sell my own books. I do order 100 copies at a time to use for marketing, to use for giveaways. I write books on Sweepstakes. Of course, I'm going to give some away.
Right.
And right. And then, so I like to send them out. And I found that in the smaller size, they got too thick to go through the mail slot, and the postage would be higher. So I went with the 6x9 format, because it keeps the book thinner, even though it's got the same amount of information in it.
Right.
and it goes to the mail slot and the postage is lower. So if any author wants to have copies to send out for their, marketing purposes,
Right.
that's another tip that you probably usually don't hear from self-published authors.
Yes. Yeah, we haven't heard that yet. I think you're episode 25 or 26. We haven't heard that yet. So that's a good one. And again, when you become your own publisher, when you self-publish, these little things are things that you don't really need to think about, but they're very beneficial. Like you said, if you're ordering 100 copies at a time and you're giving them away, postage, every penny that you save counts over time. So these are good tricks
Yeah.
to have. Yeah. So
Yeah, it adds up. It adds up. And
yes.
yeah, the reason I tell people I'm so good at teaching sweepstakes is because I've made every mistake. And so I'm going to teach you what to do so you don't have to go through the same hardship. So if I can pass on that same type of information to any self-published author, I'm going to save you a lot of grief and pain and pennies in your pocketbook. And if I can help them, then that makes me happy.
Right. Like you said, like your sign said earlier, you can't lose helping others win. So it's something that especially nonfiction authors, there are ROI benefits, monetary benefits to writing nonfiction books, but just knowing that you can help, that you can one day receive an email that says, I read your book and it changed my life, my business, etc., is so important. So your one book that we're talking about, giveaways, sweepstakes. What when it comes to book giveaways, is there any advice that you can give to authors, like a strategy to give away books without losing too much money, where it kind of drives traffic?
Well, there's different ways you can do it. It depends on because I'm also a sweepstakes marketer. I work with companies on running promotions, and you have to decide what your purpose is in giving away the book. Do you want to just make people aware that it exists? Do you want to increase your email list? Do you want, do you want to increase your, say, Instagram followers? What is the purpose of your marketing? And then you work backwards from that onto how you're going to do it. For example, if you have a little bit of a budget, Goodreads offers a sweepstakes service for books. I think the last time I checked, it was, $100 or so US, and they will do all the work for you, which is nice. Mm-hmm. So you're paying them for that service. And of course, they have a gazillion subscribers to their website. And so you would get a lot of awareness there. Or if you're, say, on a podcast like this, you could offer a free book, and then they would do a drawing at a certain time, and then you could just mail out a book yourself. It just depends on what your target is. You could even have a newsletter and give away a book a month, and just make that incentive for all your subscribers to subscribe and stay subscribed. That's my advice as a marketer. You have to look at what your purpose is and then work the giveaway backwards from that.
Those are very good points. And especially when it comes to self-published authors, so many make the mistake of, and I'm guilty of doing it too, but pressing publish and being happy, and then just staring at your reports every 24 hours and just waiting for the numbers to go up, and you're flatlined. Nothing's happening. Again, there are different reports come out that say there are between 700,000 and 1.2 million new books released every year. So if you're releasing a new book, it's a needle in a haystack for your readers to find you. So some of the things that you're mentioning here about giveaways, marketing strategies are very important. When it comes to you and your marketing background, is there any other advice outside of your core strategy, which again is the giveaways, anything else that you have done that has worked to kind of promote your book?
Well, I hate to say that I have a topic that everybody wants to know.
Yes.
I have like I think is the right word confirmation bias, built in, because everybody wants to know how to win. And I
Right.
even built SEO into this second chapter title of my book. So my first book was called You Can't Win If You Don't Enter.
Right.
And one day my dad said to me, I don't think your sales are as good as they could be because people don't want to work. And I
That's a
thought, oh,
very good
he's
point.
right. I
Yeah.
know it's terrible, but it's
Mhm.
true. And then I saw a someone that does book advice on TikTok, and she said, never use the words how to in your book title. And I messaged her and I said, I actually used how to in my book title because the SEO factor on my book title is great, because a lot of people go to Google and type in the words how to win. So my book would come up. I built in SEO to my book title because that's what people want to do. And it sounds much easier than You Can't Win If You Don't Enter. It's the same information inside, in the sense of, there's a system on how to find, organize, enter, and win. Sweepstakes, contests, and giveaways. I always say that 3 times fast. There is a system to it, just like there's a system in book publishing. There's a system on how to win sweepstakes. And so, oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought.
That's all right. So I was asking, and you brought me right to a really good point, because you were talking about SEO, which is so important, which is so overlooked, especially Amazon now, I believe, is like the number 3 search engine in the world. So most people that go to Amazon, they type in exactly what they want, and keywords. When it comes to, like you said, putting in keywords or focusing on SEO in your book title, that's very important. For fiction, it's a little bit more difficult because you don't have a subtitle. So for fiction, for anyone listening, if you're writing fiction, the title of your book should be the title of your book. And then when you go to list on Amazon, say you're writing a mystery book, or a thriller novel, you can title it your book title and then a mystery thriller, so that it's good for SEO. When it comes to nonfiction, again, we know that it's much easier because you have that subtitle. You have to avoid the keyword stuffing, which I'm sure you know all about with your SEO and marketing background, but trying to jam a whole bunch of keywords into the subtitle, and then Amazon does not like that. But yeah, so there are, again, like you said, that the bias that you have. There are so many different things, so many different areas of marketing. And it does become work, as much as we don't want to hear that. It does become work to market your book, but giveaways are very important. And when you print 100 copies of your book, it might cost you some money. You can also do ebook giveaways. Goodreads has that option as well. Like you mentioned, you could give away a free book when you go into a podcast. So I do that when I go on podcasts too. We have our web link /free book. That gives people just a way to have, because again, you can't win, or you can't lose if you help other people win. So different strategies for anyone listening to give away the book. But the most important thing to do at first is to write the book. After
Yes.
after you have written the book, Carolyn, where do you help authors with this kind of work? Like, is that part of your business model, or are you strictly on kind of focusing on your giveaway strategy?
I don't actually professionally help authors. Like, it's not part of my my services that I do. But when I talk to people, if I have somebody say to me, hey, I want to write a book too, I'll give them the advice, and I will point them in directions to people like you, who this is what you do for a living and can get people to the next level. So I'm a good networker.
That's very important.
My website is actually a hub of all things contesting on the teacher side of it. And I don't actually run giveaways and do like, I'm not a sweepstakes aggregate. I don't list contests on my website, but I point people to all the different tools that they can use to enter. And I teach classes and I write books. So I'm like a teacher, and then I point people in the right direction. So the same with, if anybody says to me, hey, do you have any great advice? I'm like, I know this great podcast that you should listen to if you want to write a book. And I point people into different directions, and I'll give them advice on my personal journey, but everyone has their own story, which is what makes it interesting.
Speaking of which, that was a question that I wanted to ask you before we wrap up and we tell listeners where they can find you. Tell us a story. In the opening, we said that others who've used your strategy have won $1 million in giveaways. I'm sure you have many stories of helping people, writing your book, working with other people to get toward this strategy, right? To win. Tell us about a cool story of somebody that you've worked with, or if it's been you, just a cool story of some kind of sweepstakes win.
There's so many that I only use some of the biggest prizes, and that's why I say $1 million, but I know it's probably 5 or 10 million, like, because I've been helping people since 2006. So for example, my friend Tom Cavalli, who owns I Win Contests, started out in 2008 when he read my book, You Can't Win If You Don't Enter. And he thought, I can do that as a hobby. And since then, he actually has won more prizes than me. He lives in a different state. Like, I live in Canada and he lives in the US, and the winning opportunities are much greater. And in total, I've won 23 trips, and as of this year, he's won 80. I think he's up to 85. He was at 83 at one point, but I think he's won 2 more since I talked to him.
Wow.
And right. So
wow,
it's out there. The prizes are out there. They're to be won. Companies spend literally billions of dollars running promotions. Now that's the whole budget. That's from creation to fulfillment, right? Including the prize. But there's a lot to be won. There's enough prizes for everybody. And so I want people to think, if they see something that says win a trip to here, or win a car, or even win a gift basket, or win some swag, go enter, because you just don't know what will show up.
That's very interesting. And I can say from a firsthand perspective, I never did that. I never entered into sweepstakes. My wife, once I met her, she is, if we're in the car and she's listening to the radio, it doesn't even matter if she's not paying attention. If she hears call in now, she'll call, and she'll grab my phone and her phone, my daughter's phone, everyone in the car. And she actually has done well. I think my bad luck kind of rubbed off on her because she hasn't won in a while, but I will definitely be pointing her to your book, because if she hears that someone won 83 different trips since 2008, she's going to be enticed. So thank you for that, Carolyn. My wife will be very, very pleased to have your book come into the mail.
Did you know we have virtual contest club meetings? She could join us.
Oh, she will be your greatest advocate. She lights up at the chance to win things. So Carolyn, where can people like my wife, where can they find you online, social media, etc.?
Well, I'm known as the Contest Queen. So on my website's contestqueen.com. I was a little late to the game on a couple of the social channels. So I'm the Contest Queen on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter and TikTok, I'm just Contest Queen.
Excellent. All right, Carolyn, thank you so much. This has been interesting. So much insight on marketing your book. Obviously, we got a little sidetracked with the giveaways and me thinking about how my wife can benefit from the episode. But thank you so much for taking the time to be here to provide this insight, and for helping others win.
Oh, I love helping others win. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Thank you.